All right, strap in, everyone. We're going deep into AI and how it's changing biomedical research. I've got this article here, Empowering Biomedical Discovery with AI Agents. And wow, it really lays out how AI could totally revolutionize genetics, cell biology, you name it.
Yeah, this article is amazing. It really maps out how we could develop these, what it calls AI scientists. Think about it, systems that can learn, think, and even make scientific breakthroughs all on their own, like AI agents that don't just analyze data, but actually come up with hypotheses, design experiments, interpret the results, basically do it all, with us humans just kind of watching.
That's why, like, having a research partner who never sleeps or takes a break. But before we get too far ahead, I'm curious, how did we even get to this point? The article talks about how data-driven models in biomedicine have evolved. Can you walk us through that a little?
Sure thing. It all started with databases and search engines, just trying to organize and get to all that bio data that kept piling up. The AlphaFold protein structure database is a great example. It's got millions of predicted protein structures all in one place.
Okay, so that was like step one, laying the foundation. Then what? Machine learning models came along, like AlphaFold itself, right? The one that predicts those protein structures.
Exactly. AlphaFold, that was a huge deal. But it can really only do protein folding. AI agents, though, they're built to be way more flexible. They can handle new data, refine their hypotheses, even mess with lab equipment live. That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, so we've got these super adaptable AI agents, but what kind are we talking about specifically? There are a few different types, aren't there?
The article talks about two main groups, LLM-based agents and then multi-agent systems. The LM ones rely on a single large language model, but it's programmed to do a ton of different roles, like, a human expert juggling a bunch of different jobs at once.
Got it. One AI, many hats.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of that in action?
Oh, sure. There's this thing called Co-Scientist. It's LLM based, and it basically helps chemists really optimize their reactions. It uses prompts and stuff like web searches, even runs code, all to help chemists get their work done faster and better.
That's super useful. But what about these multi-agent systems? How are they different?
Multi-agent systems are all about teamwork. It's like they break a big problem into smaller tasks, and then each little task gets its own specialized agent. Imagine a whole team of AI experts working together. That's kind of what's happening.
So instead of one AI wearing all the hats, it's more like a whole team of AI specialists.
Oh, got it.
How would that work for something like Alzheimer's research?
Oh, perfect example. Imagine one agent looking at brain scans, another one digging into genetics, and a third one focusing on clinical trial stuff. All these agents working together, you could find biomarkers for Alzheimer's, design new diagnostic tools, better clinical trials. It's a game changer.
Yeah, that's a really powerful example. Multi-agent systems could really speed up research in a field as complex as Alzheimer's, but wouldn't it be hard to coordinate all those different AI agents? How do you make sure they're all working towards the same goal,
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. It's one of the toughest things about making these systems work. Right now, researchers are coming up with communication protocols, think of it like a rule book, and mechanisms to make sure these agents can share what they know, deal with conflicts, and basically all work together smoothly.
So like making sure everyone on the team is on the same page, even if they're AI. Makes sense. But we've got these different AI agents, and I'm curious about how independent they are. The article mentions something about levels of autonomy, right?
Yep, it lays out 4 levels. It starts with level 0, where there's basically no AI agent at all, and it goes all the way to level 3, which is the ultimate goal, a fully autonomous AI scientist.
Okay, let's unpack that a little. What would a level 0 situation look like?
At level 0, think about scientists using machine learning models as tools, but the scientists are still calling all the shots. It's like using a fancy calculator.
Got it. That's pretty much how many labs are working right now. What about level 1? How do AI agents come in?
Level 1 is where AI agents start being assistants. They can do certain tasks the scientists tell them to do, but they can't make their own decisions. There's this cool example, ChemCrow. It's an AI agent that actually helps chemists plan and run their chemical experiments. Kind of like a highly skilled lab tech following instructions.
Okay, level 1 is all about AI assistance. How is level 2 different?
Level 2 is where it gets really interesting. These agents are like collaborators, They help refine hypotheses, they're in on designing experiments, and they can run tasks much more independently. but they're still limited to hypotheses that are, like, directly related to what we already know.
So it's like having a really smart grad student working with you, offering ideas and expertise, but still under your guidance.
Yes, exactly. They're handling tougher tasks, offering really useful insights, but human researchers are still leading the way.
Okay, and level 3, is that the big one? The totally independent AI scientist making big discoveries all on its own?
That's the dream, right? Level 3, they're like the ultimate AI scientists. They'd be able to come up with totally new hypotheses, design groundbreaking experiments, and maybe even make the big discoveries themselves.
That's both really cool and kind of intimidating at the same time. I mean, it's one thing to have an AI analyze data or design experiments, but to have one come up with totally new ideas and take charge, that's wild.
It is, and it's important to remember that levels 2 and 3, those are still goals. We're not quite there yet, but the potential, huge, absolutely huge.
I'm dying to know more about how these higher levels of autonomy would actually work. What would it really mean to have a level 3 AI scientist in a lab? Like, paint us a picture.
The article has some really cool examples. In genetics, a level 3 agent could start new study groups, decide the best ways to collect DNA, even come up with new ways to analyze genomic data, all without us humans needing to tell it what to do.
Wow. Genetics would be totally transformed. It's mind-blowing that AI could be driving those kinds of advances. What about cell biology? How could a level 3 AI agent change things there?
In cell biology, think about this. A level 3 agent could figure out what we don't know, come up with completely new treatment strategies, and even develop brand new experimental technologies to study cells at a level of detail we can't even imagine right now. It'd be like having a cell biology expert that's constantly pushing the limits of what we know, powered by AI.
That's incredible. The possibilities seem endless. What about chemical biology? What impact could a level 3 AI agent have there?
In chemical biology, a level 3 agent could be designing binders for targets we thought were undruggable, developing new chemical probes to study how molecules interact, or even coming up with in situ experiments to look at complex biological systems in real time.
This is starting to sound like science fiction, but obviously there are a lot of moving parts to making these AI agents. It's not just about writing some code, right? What are the basic building blocks of these AI scientists?
Absolutely. To build AI agents for biomedicine, you need a deep understanding of both the science and the tech behind it. The article breaks down these 4 key modules that make up an AI agent: perception, interaction, memory, and reasoning. They're basically like the processes we humans use to do research, but in AI form.
Okay, let's take a closer look at those modules. Let's start with perception. What does that even mean for an AI agent?
Perception is all about how the agent understands and interprets data from everywhere. Think of it like the agent's senses, taking in information from the world around it.
So what kind of data are we talking about? Just numbers and stats, or can these AI agents understand things like images and videos too?
Oh, it's everything. Text, images, videos, genomic data, readings from lab equipment, you name it. The tricky part is getting large language models, which are the brains behind a lot of these AI agents, to understand all these different types of data. It's not as easy as just feeding it all in.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's one thing for an AI to get text, but how do you teach it to see something like a protein structure or a picture of a cell from a microscope?
It's a great question, and it's not a simple thing to do. Researchers are developing really advanced techniques to take complex data and make it so LLMs can understand it. For example, they might translate a cell image into a series of text descriptions, like the shape, size, and even what organelles are visible. Then the LLM can use that text to process and understand the image.
Wow, that's really cool. It's like creating a translator between what we see and the language-based world of AI. So once the AI agent has perceived the data, what happens next? How does it use all that information?
That's where interaction comes in. This module lets the agent connect with us, scientists, other AI agents, and even different tools. Think of it like the AI's communication and collaboration skills.
So it's not just sitting there passively taking in information, it's actually engaging with its environment.
Exactly. Interaction can involve natural language interfaces so the AI can talk to humans in a way that feels natural. There are multi-agent communication strategies so AIs can work together, and they even use things like APIs, application programming interfaces to tap into external resources.
Hold on, APIs. Can you explain those? I've heard the term, but not sure I really get what they do. Why are they important for AI agents?
Sure. Think of an API like a waiter at a restaurant. You're the AI agent. You want to order food, in this case, data or a specific function. The menu is like a database or a software program. The API is the waiter who takes your order, which is your request, and brings you the food, which is the data or function, from the kitchen, which is the database or program.
Okay, I get it. So the API lets the AI agent talk to other systems and get the information or tools it needs.
Exactly. It's how AI agents connect with the real world and do things like searching databases, running simulations, or even controlling lab equipment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the agent can ask questions, share what it's found, even work together with other AIs, all thanks to these APIs.
It's all about creating a dynamic research environment where AI agents can be active participants. And speaking of active participants, we can't forget about memory.
Right, memory. That's crucial for any researcher, human or AI.
Hmm.
What does memory look like for an AI agent, though? Is it like a giant hard drive packed with data?
It's a little more complicated than that. AI agents have both long-term memory and short-term memory, kind of like us. Long-term memory is where they store factual knowledge, like a scientist understanding the basics of their field. It's where the AI keeps things like the laws of physics, the structure of DNA, or the properties of different chemical
So
elements.
that's the AI's core knowledge, the basic stuff it builds on.
Exactly. And then there's short-term memory, which is more dynamic. It keeps track of information that's relevant right now, like the details of a recent experiment, the steps in a thought process, or instructions from a scientist.
So it's like the AI's working memory,
Yeah.
always changing as it interacts with its environment.
Precisely. And just like human memory, an AI's memory needs to be constantly updated with new information, sometimes revised when it learns something new, and sometimes even get rid of outdated or useless information.
Okay, so we've got perception, interaction, and memory. What's the last module? The one that brings it all together.
The final module is reasoning. This is where the agent really shines. It plans experiments, judges hypotheses, makes decisions, basically thinks like a scientist.
It's like the brains of the operation. This is what makes the AI feel like it's actually intelligent.
You got it. Reasoning is what makes AI agents different from simple machine learning models. It's their ability to think critically, solve problems, and draw logical conclusions. It lets them go beyond just processing data to actually understanding it, figuring out the why behind the what.
Okay, so we've got these four modules:
Mhm.
perception, interaction, memory, and reasoning. Can you give us an example of how they all work together, like in a specific research scenario? I'm having a little trouble picturing how they all fit together to make a functioning system.
Of course. The article describes a hypothetical AI agent that's setting up experiments to study mitochondrial DNA in fruit flies. Let's walk through how those four modules would work in that situation.
Perfect, I'm ready. Walk me through it.
Okay, first up is the perception module. It would gather all sorts of information about mitochondrial DNA from different places: scientific papers, genomic databases, even images of those fruit fly cells. It processes all that data to get up to speed on what's already known about the topic.
So the agent is doing its research, getting all the background info.
Exactly. Next comes interaction. The agent might ask scientists some questions, maybe using a natural language interface, to get a better understanding of the research goals or get feedback on early ideas. It could even talk to other AI agents that are experts in genetics or cell biology, sharing information and working together.
So it's like a virtual lab meeting. But instead of scientists around a table, it's AI agents talking to each other.
Precisely. And they're not limited by things like time zones or location. They can work together nonstop, making research go way faster. And don't forget about memory. The agent stores important information about mitochondrial DNA in its long-term memory, the fundamental stuff it needs for the research. And it uses short-term memory to keep track of recent experiment results and change its approach if needed.
It's like the AI agent is always learning and updating its understanding as it goes.
You got it. And finally, we get to reasoning. This is where it all comes together. The agent uses its knowledge of mitochondrial DNA and all the data it gathered to come up with hypotheses about how this genetic material gets removed in fruit flies. Then it designs experiments to test those hypotheses and might even be able to control lab equipment to run the experiments all on its own.
Wow, that's a really comprehensive example. I could see how all those modules work together to actually make a system that acts like a scientist. But as we've talked about, this level of complexity also brings up some serious questions and potential problems, right?
You're absolutely right. As cool as all this is, we have to be realistic about the challenges and risks. And the article does a good job of pointing those out, things we should definitely talk about.
Okay, let's get into those challenges. This technology has huge potential, but it's important to understand the possible downsides too.
Totally agree. We have to be careful and thoughtful about how we build and use these AI agents to make sure we're being responsible and ethical.
Okay, let's dive into those challenges then. What are some of the biggest roadblocks researchers are hitting when they try to build these AI agents?
One of the big ones is making sure these systems are, robust and reliable. AI agents, even the really fancy ones, they can still mess up. They might give you a prediction that's totally off, show some bias because of the data they were trained on, or even hallucinate information, basically making stuff up.
So even AIs can have their creative moments. But in science, we need cold, hard facts, not fiction. I can see how those kinds of errors could be a big deal, especially in something like biomedicine where accuracy is so important.
Absolutely. And it gets even trickier because sometimes these AI agents can be super confident about their predictions, even when they're dead wrong. That overconfidence could lead researchers down the wrong path, making decisions based on bad information, and that could really set science back.
That's a scary thought. So how do we make sure we're building AI agents that we can actually trust, especially in fields like drug discovery or disease diagnosis where the stakes are so high?
That's where testing and evaluation come in, and they have to be really thorough. We need better ways to assess these AI agents. We can't just look at whether they get the right answer. We need to understand how they got there, how they think, and if that reasoning process is actually sound, especially when they're interacting with the real world.
It's like, it's not enough to just know the answer. We need to know how they arrived at the answer. Makes sense. What other challenges are out there?
Another big one is how we get the data to train these agents. AI agents, especially those using those large language models, they need a ton of high-quality data to learn. But in biomedicine, getting that data is hard and expensive. It means collecting and labeling huge data sets of patient records, genomic data, experimental results, scientific papers, the works.
It sounds like a catch-22.
Yeah.
We need better data to train better AI agents, but we need better AI agents to help us get that better data in the first place. How do we break free from that cycle?
It's a tough one for sure. One way is to use the data we already have and figure out clever ways to combine it or get more out of it. Another way is to come up with new technologies that can automate data collection and labeling that could speed things up and make it cheaper to get those high-quality data sets.
Okay, so we've talked about robustness, reliability, and getting the right data. What other hurdles do we need to overcome in this race to build AI scientists?
One thing the article doesn't really talk about, but I think it's super important, is the potential for these AI agents to become too specialized. As we push towards these higher levels of autonomy, we have to be careful not to make AI agents that are so focused on one tiny task that they miss the bigger picture.
That's an interesting point. It's like, if an AI agent is only trained to optimize one specific chemical reaction, it might miss out on all those accidental discoveries that happen in real labs when scientists are just, exploring different ideas and playing around.
Exactly. We need to make sure these AI agents are curious and flexible, even as they become experts in specific areas. We want them to be able to explore unexpected paths, to question what they think they know, and to think creatively, not just follow a set of rules.
So it's not just about creating AI that's super efficient. It's about creating AI that can think outside the box and make those serendipitous discoveries that often lead to scientific breakthroughs.
Exactly. We want AI agents that can work with human researchers, not replace them. We want them to be partners, bringing their strengths to the table while still respecting human intuition, creativity, and critical thinking.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the bigger challenges in developing AI agents for biomedicine, but let's go back to those 4 levels of autonomy for a minute. I'm really curious about how those different levels might actually play out in specific fields, like genetics, cell biology, and chemical biology.
Great idea. Let's start with genetics. Imagine you're a researcher studying, say, the genetic basis of a complex disease like Alzheimer's. At level 0, you might be using machine learning models to look at GWS data.
Hold on, you just threw out GWAS. Can you unpack that acronym for our listeners?
Sure thing. GW stands for Genome-Wide Association Study. It's basically a type of study where you scan the genomes of a whole bunch of people looking for genetic variations that are linked to a specific trait or disease.
So like for Alzheimer's, you'd be looking for genetic differences between people who have the disease and people who don't.
Exactly. And by looking at those differences, researchers can pinpoint genetic variations that might make someone more likely to develop Alzheimer's.
Okay, that makes sense. So back to level 0, the researcher is using machine learning to analyze this GWS data. What would that actually look like in practice?
The researcher might use a machine learning model to spot patterns in the data, looking for genetic variations that are more common in people with Alzheimer's. They could also use the model to predict someone's risk of getting the disease based on their genes.
So the machine learning model is basically a really powerful stats tool, helping the researchers sift through all that data and find potential genetic links to Alzheimer's.
Exactly. But at level 1, we start bringing in AI agents. Now, the AI agent doesn't just analyze the data, it actually helps the researcher make sense of what they're seeing. It can generate hypotheses about what specific genes might be doing and even suggest new experiments to run.
It's like having an AI research assistant that's always up to date on the latest genetic research and can give the human researcher valuable insights and suggestions.
Exactly. The AI agent could even help the researcher write up their findings or put together presentations for scientific conferences.
Wow, that would be amazing. It would free up so much time for researchers to focus on the bigger picture, the more creative aspects of their work.
Absolutely. And when we bump it up to level 2, the AI agent gets even more involved. It could take the lead in refining the researcher's initial hypotheses, design experiments to test them, and even analyze the results.
So it's a real partnership now. The AI agent is like a scientific partner, not just an assistant.
Right. And then at level 3, we hit the ultimate goal, a completely autonomous AI scientist. Now we're talking about an AI agent that could potentially find totally new genetic targets for Alzheimer's, come up with new treatment strategies, and even design personalized treatments based on a patient's unique genes.
Wow. That would be revolutionary for Alzheimer's research and for so many other diseases that have a genetic component. But as amazing as that sounds, it feels a little far-fetched. Are we really anywhere close to having level 3 AI scientists working in labs?
It's important to remember that level 3 is still a dream. We're not there yet. But the progress in AI research is happening so fast. Who knows? Maybe sometime soon we'll have AI scientists making those big discoveries that change how we understand and treat diseases.
I'm excited and a little scared at the same time, to be honest. Okay, so we've seen how these different levels of AI autonomy might work in genetics. What about cell biology? How could AI agents change things in that field?
Okay, let's say you're a cell biologist and you're trying to understand how cancer cells become resistant to chemo drugs. At level 0, you might be using machine learning to analyze data from things like cell imaging, genomics, and viability assays, basically looking for clues that could explain why the resistance is happening.
So again, you're using AI as a super powerful data analysis tool to help you understand these complex data sets. What would a level 1 scenario look like for this?
At level 1, you might have an AI agent that not only analyzes the data, but also helps you bring all those different data sources together, like from imaging, genomics, and assays. It could even create computer models of drug resistance and help design new experiments to really dig into the mechanisms behind it.
So it's starting to connect the dots and give you a bigger picture view, pulling from all those different sources of data.
Exactly. And then at level 2, the AI agent becomes a true collaborator in the research. It could start coming up with and testing its own hypotheses about drug resistance, optimizing those experimental protocols, and even analyzing data in real time to change the direction of the research if needed.
That's wild. It's like having a super smart lab partner who's constantly analyzing data, coming up with new ideas, and adjusting the experiment as you go.
It's true collaboration, with the AI agent bringing his own unique skills to the table, working alongside the human researcher's expertise and gut feelings.
And at level 3, I imagine the AI agent could be discovering completely new ways to overcome drug resistance, maybe by finding a pathway we never knew about, or designing a totally new drug that targets the resistance mechanism head-on.
Exactly. The possibilities are mind-blowing. It's like having an AI-powered cell biologist working with you, constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know and making discoveries faster than ever before.
Okay, one last field, chemical biology. How might AI agents shake things up there?
Let's imagine you're trying to design a new drug to target a specific protein involved in a disease. At level 0, you might be using AI tools for things like predicting protein structure, molecular docking, and virtually screening huge libraries of chemicals.
So at this level, AI is basically speeding up and streamlining the early stages of drug discovery, tasks that would normally take human researchers forever.
Right. But at level 1, the AI agent could go beyond those individual tasks, pulling together multiple tools and data sources to design a more promising drug candidate. It could analyze a protein structure, predict how it interacts with potential drugs, and even suggest changes to the drug's chemical makeup to make it more effective.
It's like having an AI-powered medicinal chemist on your team.
Great analogy. Now, at level 2, the AI agent could take on even more responsibility, like actually designing and making new molecules, testing how well they work against the target protein, and tweaking the drug's properties based on those experimental results. It could even help with things like filing patents or writing up the findings for publication.
So it's basically taking over more and more of the tasks that human researchers would normally do, giving scientists more time to think about the big questions and be more creative.
You got it. And at level 3, the AI agent might be able to design entirely new types of drugs, maybe by going after a protein that was previously undruggable or coming up with a totally new way for the drug to work.
That would completely change the game for drug development. It's clear that AI agents could speed up scientific discovery in all areas of biomedicine, and how much autonomy these agents have can really make a difference in how fast and how broadly research moves forward.
Absolutely. And remember, these different levels of autonomy can all exist together. A lab might have some AI agents working at level 1, while others are at level 2, depending on how complex the task is and how much human supervision is needed.
It's not an all-or-nothing thing. Researchers can choose the level of AI autonomy that fits their needs and their research goals. But like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. We have to be aware of the challenges and risks as we develop and use these powerful tools.
Couldn't agree more. And the article does a good job of highlighting those challenges, things we've already touched on, like robustness, reliability, and getting enough good data. And then there are the bigger ethical questions, like making sure these AI agents are used responsibly and don't accidentally create more bias or cause unintended problems.
Exactly. It's about making sure AI empowers human researchers, not replaces them. Finding the right balance, using the strengths of both AI and human intelligence to make scientific discoveries and improve human health. That's the goal.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about creating a future where humans and AI work together seamlessly, each contributing their unique skills to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
Okay, so we've explored these different levels of autonomy in AI agents and how they could impact different areas of biomedicine. And we've talked about the challenges and risks involved. What else does the article cover that we should dig into?
The article also goes deeper into those 4 key modules we talked about: perception, interaction, memory, and reasoning. It explores how these modules are basically like the processes human scientists use, and it's fascinating to see the parallels between human and artificial intelligence.
I'm ready for that deeper dive. Let's unpack those modules a bit more and see how they're actually being implemented in these AI agents.
Let's start with perception. Just like human scientists get information from all sorts of places, like reading papers, going to conferences, watching experiments, AI agents need a way to perceive and interpret data from the world around them.
So it's like the agent's senses, allowing it to take in information from its environment. But what kind of data are we talking about?
Oh, it's everything. Text, images, videos, genomic data, sensor readings from lab equipment, you name it. The challenge is getting those large language models, which power a lot of these AI agents, to understand all these different types of data. It's not as simple as just feeding it all in raw.
Right. I can see how that would be tricky. How do researchers teach an AI agent to see an image or understand data from a lab instrument?
Researchers are coming up with some clever techniques to convert all these different types of data into a format that LLMs can understand. For example, they might turn images into textual descriptions and protein structures into strings of characters.
It's like creating a universal language that both AI and humans can speak.
Exactly. And once the AI agent has taken in the data, it needs a way to interact with its environment. The scientists, other AI agents, and all the tools.
So this is where the agent's communication and collaboration skills come in.
You got it. Interaction involves things like natural language interfaces, so the AI can communicate with humans more naturally, multi-agent communication strategies, so different AIs can work together, and the use of those APIs we talked about earlier to connect to external resources.
Can you give us an example of how this might play out in the real world? How would an AI agent use these tools to interact with its surroundings?
Let's say an AI agent is working on a new drug. It might need to access a database of chemical structures, run a simulation of how the drug interacts with a protein, or even control a robotic arm to carry out an experiment. All of those things require interaction with external tools and systems.
So the AI agent is actually reaching out and making things happen in the real world. It's not just passively processing information.
That's the idea. And of course, all this interaction creates a lot of new information. That's where memory comes into play.
Memory, the foundation of learning and progress. But what does memory look like in an AI agent? Is it like a giant hard drive filled with data?
It's a little more nuanced than that. AI agents have both long-term and short-term memory, just like humans do.
Can you break those down for us? What kind of information gets stored in each type of memory?
Sure. Long-term memory is where the AI agent stores all those facts and knowledge, like the laws of physics, basic chemistry principles, or the structure of DNA. Think of it like a massive library that the AI can tap into whenever it needs to.
Okay, so that's like the agent's core knowledge base. What about short-term memory? What does that do?
Short-term memory is more like a temporary workspace. It's where the AI agent keeps track of information that's relevant right now, like details from a recent experiment, the steps it took to solve a problem, or instructions given by a scientist.
So it's like the agent's working memory, always changing and updating as it interacts with the world.
Exactly. And just like with human memory, the AI agent's memory isn't static. It's constantly evolving. New information comes in, old information gets revised or even deleted, and connections between different pieces of information get stronger or weaker.
It's a really dynamic process.
Okay.
We covered perception, interaction, and memory. Now let's talk about that last module, reasoning.
Reasoning is what makes intelligence, whether it's human or artificial. It's the ability to think critically, solve problems, make decisions, and draw logical conclusions.
So it's what separates AI agents from simpler machine learning models. It's what gives them the power to think like a scientist.
Exactly. AI agents need to be able to reason about complex biological systems, come up with hypotheses, plan experiments, interpret results, and even strategize long-term research plans.
That's a lot to ask. How do researchers actually build that reasoning capability into these AI agents? What kind of approaches are they using?
There are a bunch of different approaches, including symbolic reasoning, statistical inference, and even techniques borrowed from how humans think. One popular method is to use those large language models we've talked about, which are trained on massive amounts of text and code to handle those reasoning tasks.
So the AI agent learns to think by reading and analyzing all that human knowledge, kind of like a student hitting the books.
That's a great analogy, and as these language models get more and more sophisticated, they're getting better at those complex reasoning tasks, even in specialized fields like biomedicine.
Okay, so we've got those four modules: perception, interaction, memory, and reasoning. Can you walk us through how they all work together in a real-world research scenario? I'm still trying to wrap my head around how all these pieces fit together to create a system that can actually act like a scientist.
Sure. Remember that hypothetical AI agent we talked about earlier, the one studying mitochondrial DNA in fruit flies? Let's say the agent is trying to figure out how this genetic material gets selectively removed as the flies develop.
Okay, I'm picturing it. The AI agent is in the lab, hanging out with fruit flies and all sorts of fancy equipment. What happens first?
The agent's perception module jumps into action, gathering information about mitochondrial DNA from all over the place. Scientific papers, genomic databases, even images of those fruit fly cells. It might even be getting sensor data from the lab equipment that's monitoring the flies as they grow.
So the agent is like a sponge, absorbing all this information, building up its knowledge about mitochondrial DNA and how it works in fruit flies.
Exactly. And as it's processing all that data, it starts to build a model of how mitochondrial DNA is passed down and how it might be selectively removed during development.
So the agent has done its homework. It's got a basic understanding of the problem now. What happens next?
Now it's time for interaction. The agent might reach out to some human scientists, maybe through a natural language interface, to make sure it understands the research goals or to get feedback on its early ideas. It could even talk to other AI agents that specialize in genetics or cell biology, sharing what it's learned and working together on the research.
It's like a virtual lab meeting, but instead of a bunch of scientists huddled around a table, it's a team of AI agents brainstorming and sharing ideas.
Exactly. And they're not limited by time zones or location. They can collaborate 24/7, speeding up the research process significantly. And of course, memory is also playing a critical role here. The agent stores all the important stuff about mitochondrial DNA in its long-term memory, that foundational knowledge it needs. And it uses its short-term memory to keep track of any new experimental results and adjust its approach if needed.
So it's like the agent is constantly learning, growing, and adapting as it goes, just like a real scientist.
That's the idea. And finally, we get to reasoning. This is where the agent really shines. It takes all that knowledge about mitochondrial DNA and all the data it's gathered and uses it to develop hypotheses about how this genetic material might be selectively removed in fruit flies.
It's like the agent is trying to crack the code of mitochondrial DNA.
Exactly. And once it's formulated those hypotheses, it can design experiments to test them and maybe even control the lab equipment to carry out those experiments autonomously.
That's incredible. This AI agent sounds like a real scientific partner, capable of working independently while still interacting and collaborating with human researchers.
Hmm.
But as impressive as this all sounds, we can't ignore the fact that building AI agents for biomedicine comes with its own set of challenges, right? It's not as easy as just translating those four modules into code.
You're absolutely right. We've already talked about some of those challenges, ensuring robustness and reliability, getting enough high-quality data, and navigating all the ethical considerations. But there are also challenges that are unique to biomedicine, stemming from the inherent complexity of biological systems.
That's a really important point. Biology is messy and complex. It's not like physics or chemistry where you often have clear-cut laws and principles. How do researchers even begin to deal with that level of complexity when they're building AI agents for biomedicine?
That's one of the biggest hurdles, for sure. Biological systems are incredibly intricate and dynamic. You've got countless interactions happening between genes, proteins, cells, and tissues. It's like trying to understand a vast and ever-changing ecosystem.
I'm getting overwhelmed just thinking about it. So how do AI agents even begin to grapple with that level of complexity?
It takes a multi-pronged approach. First of all, these AI agents need to be trained on huge amounts of data that capture the diversity and complexity of biological systems. This means data from lots of sources, like scientific papers, experimental results, genomic databases, and even patient records.
So it's about giving the AI agent a broad and deep understanding of biology, not just focusing on one small piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And it's not just about the quantity of data, it's about quality too. The data has to be accurate, reliable, and represent the incredible diversity of biological systems out there.
Right? Bad data in, bad data out. But even with high quality data, isn't there a risk that these AI agents will oversimplify things? Biology is so nuanced and context dependent. How do you make sure the AI agent isn't missing crucial details or making assumptions that aren't actually true in the real world?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of why building AI agents for biomedicine is such a challenge. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about truly understanding the biology. AI agents have to be able to deal with uncertainty, work with incomplete data, and constantly update their models as new information comes in.
So it's not just about building smarter AI, it's about building AI that can think like a biologist, with all the nuances and complexities that come with it.
You nailed it. And that requires a deep understanding of scientific principles, experimental methods, and even the limitations of what we currently know.
It sounds like a monumental task. Are researchers making any progress in tackling this challenge?
They are. They really are. They're developing new AI techniques specifically designed to handle the complexity of biology. For example, some AI agents are being trained on data from lots of different sources now, like scientific papers, experimental results, and even patient records. This helps them develop a more holistic understanding of biology and make better decisions.
So they're getting a more well-rounded education in biology, so to speak.
Exactly. Another promising approach is to incorporate something called knowledge graphs into AI agents. Knowledge graphs are basically like maps that show the relationships between different biological entities, things like genes, proteins, and diseases. By using these knowledge graphs, AI agents can tap into our existing knowledge about biological systems to make more informed predictions and decisions.
That's fascinating. It's like giving the AI agent a cheat sheet, a map of the biological landscape it's navigating.
I like that analogy. And these knowledge graphs can be updated all the time with new information, allowing the AI agent to keep up with the latest scientific discoveries and refine its understanding of biological systems over time.
That's really encouraging to hear. It sounds like researchers are making some real progress in addressing the challenge of biological complexity. But are there any other challenges we should be thinking about? Any other hurdles we need to clear before we can fully embrace AI agents in biomedicine?
Well, one challenge we haven't really touched on yet, but it's incredibly important, is the need for interpretability. AI agents, especially those using deep learning algorithms, can be a bit like black boxes. It's often hard to understand how they're coming to their conclusions or to spot potential biases in their thinking processes.
So it's like we know what goes in and what comes out, but we don't know what's happening in between. That could be a huge barrier to trust and adoption, especially in fields like medicine where the stakes are so high.
You're absolutely right. If a doctor is going to make a treatment decision based on what an AI agent recommends, they need to understand how the agent came to that recommendation. They need to trust that the agent's reasoning is sound.
So how do we address this interpretability problem? Are there ways to make these AI systems more transparent?
Researchers are definitely working on it. They're coming up with new techniques to make AI agents more transparent and accountable. One way is to create something called explainable AI systems, which can give humans understandable reasons for their decisions. Imagine an AI agent that can generate a report that highlights the key factors it considered when making a diagnosis, along with the evidence supporting its conclusion.
That would be a game changer. It would let doctors and researchers peek inside the black box and understand how the AI agent is thinking.
Exactly. Another approach is to involve human experts in the process of developing and evaluating these AI agents. That can help ensure that the agents are aligned with human values and that their thought processes are sound.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making AI that we can understand and trust.
Well said. And that's going to be crucial as AI agents become more integrated into biomedical research and healthcare. We have to find ways to make these systems more transparent, accountable, and trustworthy if we want them to be widely adopted and truly benefit humanity.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges of building AI agents for biomedicine. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential upside. How could these AI agents really change the game for research and healthcare?
One area that has people really excited is drug discovery. AI agents could make the whole process of finding and developing new drugs much faster, maybe even leading to cures for diseases that are untreatable right now.
That's a powerful thought, using AI to tackle diseases that have stumped us for so long. Can you give us a clearer picture of how this might actually work? Like, what would an AI-driven drug discovery process look like?
Imagine this. An AI agent that can go through massive databases of genetic information, pinpoint promising drug targets, and even design and create new molecules with specific therapeutic properties. And all of this with very little human involvement.
It sounds like science fiction. A super smart AI churning through data and coming up with cures for diseases.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. Researchers are already using AI to identify potential drug targets, screen huge libraries of chemical compounds, and even design completely new molecules.
So it's not just hype, there's real progress happening. But what makes AI so good at this? Why couldn't human researchers do the same thing, just with more time and people?
Well, one of AI's biggest strengths is its ability to process and analyze massive amounts of data, and it can do it way faster and more efficiently than humans. This means AI agents can spot patterns and connections that human researchers might miss, leading to new drug targets or treatment strategies.
It's like having a whole army of AI researchers working nonstop, sifting through mountains of data to find those hidden gems.
Exactly. Plus, AI agents aren't limited by human biases or preconceived ideas. They can explore new chemical possibilities and come up with drug candidates that humans might never even think of.
That's a really important point. Human researchers, even the best ones, are still influenced by their own experiences and ways of thinking. AI could help us break free from those limitations and open up new areas of research that we might have overlooked before.
I agree. AI has the potential to really shake things up in drug discovery, leading to new treatments and maybe even cures for diseases we thought were incurable.
Okay, so drug discovery is one area where AI could have a huge impact. What other areas of biomedicine could benefit from these AI agents?
Personalized medicine is another area that's really exciting. AI agents could help develop treatments that are tailored to a person's unique genes, lifestyle, and environment.
That's fascinating. Moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach to medicine and creating treatments that are truly personalized.
Exactly. Imagine an AI agent that looks at a patient's medical history, their genomic data, their lifestyle, even real-time data from wearable devices, and uses all of that to come up with a treatment plan that's specifically designed for them.
It's like having a personal AI health advisor that knows everything about you and can create a custom treatment plan just for you.
That's a great way to think about it. And this kind of personalized approach could revolutionize how we treat all sorts of diseases, from cancer to heart disease to Alzheimer's.
I love the idea of treatments that are not only more effective, but also less invasive and have fewer side effects because they're so targeted.
Absolutely. And personalized medicine could also improve preventive care. AI agents could analyze someone's risk factors for different diseases and recommend lifestyle changes or preventive measures that could lower their chances of getting sick.
So it's not just about treating diseases after they happen, it's about preventing them in the first place.
Exactly. AI could be key in shifting the focus of healthcare from treatment to prevention, making the population healthier overall.
These potential benefits are incredible. Is there anything else we should talk about in terms of how AI agents could impact biomedicine?
One area that doesn't get enough attention is how AI could change public health. AI agents could be crucial for keeping an eye on global disease outbreaks. identifying new threats, and even predicting how infectious diseases might spread.
That would be so valuable, especially in today's world where diseases can spread across borders so quickly.
You're right. AI could give us an early warning system for pandemics, allowing us to be proactive and contain outbreaks to protect public health.
That could literally save so many lives. It'd be like having an AI-powered watchdog constantly scanning the globe for health threats and alerting us to potential dangers.
Great analogy. And AI agents could also help create more effective public health campaigns, making sure the right interventions reach the people who need them most. They could analyze data on how common diseases are, what the risk factors are, and how people behave to figure out the best ways to promote health and prevent disease.
So it's not just about reacting to outbreaks. It's about actively promoting public health and well-being on a global scale.
Exactly. That's what's so exciting about this technology. Its potential to improve the health of whole populations, not just individuals.
The potential benefits of AI agents in biomedicine are huge, from speeding up drug discovery to personalizing treatments to transforming public health. But we've also talked about the challenges and risks. So how do we make sure this technology is developed and used responsibly? How do we navigate this new territory and ensure that AI is a force for good, not harm?
That's the million-dollar question. It's going to take collaboration between scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and everyday people. We need open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of AI, and we need to work together to develop guidelines and regulations to make sure this technology is used ethically.
So it's not just a technological challenge, it's a societal challenge too. We need to figure out how to bring AI into our world in a way that aligns with our values and protects what's important to us.
Absolutely. And we can't forget that AI is constantly evolving. The AI agents we've been discussing today are still mostly aspirational. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer all the time.
It feels like the Wild West of technology, full of potential, but also full of unknowns. It's up to us to make sure it leads to a good outcome for everyone.
Well said. And it's important to have these conversations now while the technology is still being developed. We need to lay the groundwork for a future where AI is used ethically and responsibly, a future where AI empowers us, not diminishes us.
So what are some concrete steps we can take to make that happen? What can researchers, policymakers, and everyday people do to shape the future of AI in a positive way?
One crucial step is to push for transparency in how AI is developed. We need to know how these systems work, what data they learn from, and how they make decisions. AI systems that operate in secrecy create distrust and open the door for misuse.
It's like demanding transparency from our government or our healthcare system. We need to be able to understand the decisions that are being made, especially when those decisions could have a huge impact on our lives.
Exactly. And we need to set clear ethical guidelines for how AI agents are developed and used. Those guidelines should address things like bias, privacy, accountability, and human oversight.
So it's about setting boundaries, making sure AI is used for good, not for bad. It's about making sure human values are at the heart of AI development.
Well said. And it's also about educating the public about AI, explaining how it works, and addressing people's concerns. AI can be a powerful force for good, but only if it's developed and used responsibly.
That's such an important point. The more people understand about AI, the better equipped they'll be to participate in these conversations and help shape the future of this technology.
I couldn't agree more. AI isn't something that's happening to us. It's something we're creating together. And it's up to all of us to make sure it leads to a better future for everyone.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. AI agents have incredible potential to revolutionize biomedicine, but we need to be both excited and cautious as we move forward with this technology.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be working in this field, but it's also a time for careful consideration and responsible action.
And it's definitely a topic that deserves ongoing attention and discussion. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration into the world of AI agents in biomedicine. This has been a truly enlightening conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and your listeners.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity about how AI could change the world of biomedicine. We encourage you to keep learning about this fascinating topic and participate in the important conversations about how we can shape the future of AI in a way that benefits all of humanity. Until next time, keep diving deep.